Good morning, guys. How are you doing today? What I'm going to talk about today is reacting to enemy fire. And on the face of it, it seems pretty simple, but there are some strands to it that I want to cover. The basic drill that we use is called the RTR drill. That's the RTR. And what that stands for is return fire, take cover, and then return appropriate fire. And this is really applicable to a situation where you're out on patrol or moving around or whatever, and you come under expected enemy fire. So unexpected enemy fire. So there's an element of surprise. And one of the things that we're doing here is we are employing, through training, we're employing operant conditioning to help you with this and to get you through the two potential freezes. So if you're not experienced, you haven't been in combat before, what may happen is you might be victim to these two freezes. And the first freeze, you could say, is when you initially come under enemy fire. So there's that danger of just freezing right there. And we aim to help you with that with the RTR drill. And that will hopefully get you to cover. And once you're in cover, there's the danger of a second freeze. And what we're doing there is, whatever drill that you've practiced, your action on is, whether that be offensive or break contact, which we focus on a lot, that is designed to blow you through the second freeze. So RTR, initial reaction, to blow through that coming under fire, and then once you're in cover, the drills that we teach to blow you through the second freeze. And the danger is if you get into that position where you kind of feel slightly safe, you've hunkered down on a piece of ground, the danger is that you will not move. And if you don't move on the battlefield, the enemy will maneuver on you and kill you. So you've got to do something. And that's what a lot of this training is all about. And we're teaching this on Heat 1. And so Hostile Environment Advanced Tactics, Heat 1, we teach this and we get into the RTR drill. We spend 2 days on the flat range working up through your individual combat marksmanship and individual drills, and then moving you out onto the tactical ranges for days 3 and 4. So the RTR drill, what is it? Well, very basically, the RTR drill is return fire, take cover, and return appropriate fire. The last one of those, the return appropriate fire, is that bit when you've achieved cover, you and your team, you may or may not have casualties at that point, and you are able to then attempt to locate, identify, give target indications, suppress the enemy before moving into whatever drill, like I mentioned just previously. So that return appropriate fire leads into whatever drill or whatever action you're going to take. The first return fire is reflexive fire, and that's supposed to be from a standing position. And this is where we build in all those ready up movements, all those facing movements, those turning movements, head body weapon. That's where we build that in so that you can, upon coming under contact, you can turn and immediately engage the enemy with reflexive fire. Once you do that, then you move to cover. And as you're patrolling, you should always be, alert and observing. You should be looking for potential danger points where you may come under contact. You should also be looking for where you'll take cover should you come under contact. So that's where you're going to move to. So you're taking cover. And ultimately, the most important thing here is actually the taking cover part. Because that's the thing that's most likely to keep you alive. And there's probably a little bit of debate about that, and I'll cover that in a minute. So what it should look like is as you're patrolling along and you come under fire, is there should be that immediate reflexive fire, followed by dashing into cover, followed by follow-up, return appropriate fire, followed by whatever drill you're going to run into. There are two circumstances generally where you're not going to do the full RTR drill. You're going to do the TR drill. You're going to knock the first R off the front of it. And the reason for that is, one of the reasons is that you are in a position in the formation where you can't safely return fire because your buddies are in the way. And what you've also got to understand is that although you may think, you know, you can shoot past the ear of the guy at the front, you're the rear guy in the formation, single file, contact comes from the front, you may think you can do that. As soon as it happens, it's going to go boom, dynamic. And so anything you do, any actual, you know, firing you do from the back of formation is potentially going to kill your buddies. So if you're in that situation, and this is something we rehearse and we remind and revise it extensively on the classes, like a Heat 1, when we get out into the woods and we're moving in formation, is that you will just do the TR drill. And what will happen there is you're going to basically move out, bomb burst, boom, into a situation where you're trying to get on line to form a firing line to allow you to engage the enemy and then roll into the next part of the drill. So, you can't engage, do the full RTR drill depending on your position in the formation. You may just be doing the TR drill. The second situation is, and I'll always mention this, and I mentioned this before in these videos, is the two hardest things you're going to do is firstly, evacuate a casualty under fire, and secondly, locate the enemy when the enemy doesn't want to be found on the battlefield. Especially if the enemy's at certain range. In that situation, it can actually be very dangerous to try and do the full RTR drill, the first reflexive fire part of it, if you've got no idea where the enemy is. So you're patrolling along and suddenly crack, crack, zip, zip, smack, 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 you know, rounds coming in, and you've got no idea. It's like 400 yards away maybe, and you've got no idea where it actually came from. And so if you try and sort of stand there and try and do the first R, then you're potentially putting yourselves, just leaving yourselves at a target for longer standing. So what you should do in that situation is basically the patrol should just bomb burst. What it should look like is as you come under fire from, you know, enemy in concealment 400 yards away, is boom, you're all taking cover, you've all just disappeared. The battlefield is now empty. And now you're down in cover, you're trying to observe and locate the enemy, get rounds down, and then give target indications so that you can then begin to suppress, which is going to allow you, that's the final R, return appropriate fire, it's going to allow you to roll in to the appropriate drill at that time. So the two reasons you're not going to do the first R, you're not going to do the full RTR drill, you're going to do the TR drill, is when you're in a position in the formation where you can't effectively return immediate fire and you have no idea where the enemy fire came from. Now, when we first learn the RTR drills, we build this off the ready ups and the facing movements, the turning movements. We build it off that into this specific drill where we're going to return reflexive fire in whatever direction it comes from, and then we're going to move aggressively to cover, and then we're going to continue to fire from there, and then move into our drill. You learn that very much by the numbers initially. It's important to understand that then becomes an aggressive flow. Should the enemy be in a situation where the first return fire, reflexive fire is appropriate, then it's going to be turned boom, 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 and it's going to be moving aggressively into cover. And, you know, there is some debate, you'll hear debate out there that you shouldn't dash to cover because that gets your gun out of the fight. Well, assuming that you've got a situation where that first reflexive fire is appropriate, once you become practiced at the RTR drill, you can turn that into an aggressive flow where you're turning, engaging, and moving aggressively to cover while still shooting, and then getting down in cover, and then continuing to shoot whilst communicating, giving target indications, etc., so you can bring the rest of your guys on to where the enemy is, and then that moves into return appropriate fire, and then flows into the drill that you're going to do. So the RTR drill it's not in any way passive. Once you've practiced it, it's going to give you the best chance of survival because you can do it aggressively, and once you're doing it aggressively, it's also going to get you into cover. And the danger of the sort of the modern trend of misappropriating CQB drills into an external environment outside of structures is that you do this kind of drill you see where you just kind of turn and walk against an enemy that opened fire, maybe at range, maybe concealed, and you're just standing there and you're not really returning effective fire at the enemy because you haven't properly located him, but he's got you. So your best chance is to aggressively get to cover. And I kind of lost my track there. Talking too much again. So, what's going to help you get through these freezes, which you may not even have considered is to practice these drills so they become second nature. It's operant conditioning. The RTR drill, whether you're doing the R or you're doing the TR part of it, is going to get you, assuming you don't get hit in that first burst, it's going to get you to cover. It's going to get you to a situation which is going to give you the best chance of surviving the initial contact. The reason we get those reflexive fire rounds back at the enemy immediately, if he's within that kind of range, is that if an enemy does, step out fairly close, within 25 yards of you or whatever, you've got to get rounds at him, which may hit him or may pass close enough to him to interfere with what he's trying to do to you, so that he gives you a chance of getting to cover and then continuing to shoot. Because remember, it's not just him. That one guy, maybe, it's his buddies as well. So you can't just stand there returning fire at him because someone else is going to kill you. So it's got to be dynamic. It's got to be reflexive fire and then moving to cover and then continuing to fire. Also, if you haven't exactly located the enemy, this is beyond the scope of this talk, you're also going to consider cover shooting at this time. Because if there is fire coming at you, you've got to do something about it. So you may also, if you can't exactly locate the enemy, you may roll into cover shooting, which I'm going to do another talk on. The RTR drill is going to get you to cover, blow through the first freeze. It's going to allow you to continue to follow up and begin to locate and suppress the enemy. And once you're doing that, then the drills that you've learned, and these are the same drills that we teach on Heat 1, are going to allow you to blow through the second freeze, get moving, get out of the situation. I cover this stuff in detail in the MVT Tactical Manual. It was published in March. As I've said before, if you don't have this, because there's nothing else out there like it, then you're definitely wrong. That was the RTR drill, and thank you very much.